find out what you were doing on November the 9th, 1989. Let me give you a hint. Last year I was in Berlin, close to the remains of the wall, attending a conference. And it had an intriguing tagline: build platforms, not walls. And I thought, this really reminded me of the day the Berlin Wall came down. On November the 9th, 1989, I was 18, studying maths and physics in France. And I remember coming out of a class when somebody shouted, "The wall is falling down in Berlin." And I remember thinking, wow, I never thought this would happen in my lifetime. And yet it was happening. I remember the feeling of freedom. I remember the world becoming more open. What an emotional moment it must have been for families, friends, and communities who had been separated by the wall for so long to finally be able to reconnect. So today we have a unique opportunity to connect at scale, globally, and beyond borders. The technology is here, but why are we not doing it? Well, our mindset is getting in the way. We've been running this operating system in our brains over millennia to help us be part of local communities and local tribes and survive in the wild. And the last upgrade that we got was actually to help us cope with the Industrial Revolution and help us survive in factories. The Industrial Revolution, which started here in the UK, changed everything. Factories and plants grew everywhere, and for the first time in history, economic growth started. A prevalent business model based on the linear value chain emerged. And we started thinking in this linear way, not just at work, but also in our lives. So, who owns a car in this room? Okay, I can see that many people do. Let's think for a minute how cars are manufactured. So a car manufacturer buys a few materials or inputs like steel, plastic, and a few other things, transforms them into a car before selling it. It's a very linear process. And this is how most products and services have been produced over the last 200 years. Cars have been at the heart of the Industrial Revolution. The first car that was produced in the UK was actually made in Coventry in 1897 by Daimler. So now, think for a moment about your ideal car experience in the future. For me, I can think about a Tesla Roadster. It will drive itself and will probably be part of a shared network of cars. I probably won't own it, but if I do, I would share it with other people. That revolution is already underway with services like Turo, BlaBlaCar, Drivey, and others. So cars will continue to be manufactured, but in the future, they'll probably be shared as well. And so what are the benefits? One, the more efficient use of cars. On average today, cars are used only 5% of the time. Two, the reduction of carbon dioxide emissions. And three, self-driving cars can save lives. Today, 1.3 million people die in accidents, in car accidents every year, and almost 50 million get injured. Can you imagine how many lives could be saved? So beyond cars, sharing assets is part of the wider social economic shift, the sharing economy. But we need to reboot our brains and get a software upgrade for the sharing economy to work at scale. We need to think beyond our tribe. Imagine if we could remove the mental walls, if we could all be equipped to operate in open ecosystems and co-create and collaborate globally. We cannot solve our problems with the same level of thinking that created them, said Albert Einstein. Indeed, we live in a complex, global, and interconnected world. Borders cannot stop pollution. Walls cannot stop radioactive clouds. And no single firm, institution, or state alone can solve global warming. So it's up to us, and we need to organize ourselves. If you think about your tribe or your car manufacturing plant, it can have negative consequences for others, what economists call negative externalities. So what is an externality? It is something that happens to you, but you have no control. Externalities can be positive or negative. So a plant polluting a river with chemicals imposes a negative externality on the local people who don't have access to drinking water, the local flora, the fauna, the fishermen. A positive externality might be someone joining a network to share their new Tesla, and suddenly everybody else in the community benefits from them joining and accessing that new car. So many governments have shown that they don't care much about negative externalities beyond their borders. But if we want to have a local impact in the long run, with things like global warming or pollution, we need global coordination. So how do we address global challenges? How do we harness the power of communities at scale? With platforms. Because today, we know how to design, ignite, scale global platforms to unlock the power of communities. So how do we do it? Well, first, we need to decide what goals, things we care about, what the purpose of the platform is. We need to attract stakeholders from companies, institutions, to individuals. We need to match them so that they can connect and collaborate. We need to enable them to transact. And finally, we need to make sure that we optimize the ecosystem across its growth life stages. The technology to coordinate at scale and to solve these problems is here. But what is missing is a different mindset. We need an upgrade to our internal software so that we no longer focus on just the local and linear issues like we did during the Industrial Revolution. This new way of thinking, ecosystem thinking, is similar to how forests work. Have you ever wandered in a forest? A forest is a very diverse ecosystem with feedback loops to get to balance. Everything is connected in a forest. Even the trees communicate with each other through their network of roots. And it's the same for platform ecosystems like Wikipedia, Reddit, Etsy, Airbnb. The feedback, which is provided by the participants, is used to help others to inform them on their experience and who to trust. How many of you have used eBay? I can see a lot of hands. So eBay is one of these early platforms. eBay's initial purpose was to enable better forms of commerce, like the circular economy. eBay doesn't produce anything. All it does is attract sellers on one side and buyers on the other, match them, connect them, and enable them to transact. eBay started as a marketplace for collectibles, but today it connects millions of buyers and sellers across the globe. I worked there for several years and saw firsthand how it helped many entrepreneurs build their own businesses. TED is another great platform ecosystem. TED was initially run as a traditional linear media business, but in 2009, it radically opened its format to local, independently organized events known as TEDx. What did it do for its growth? Exponential. TEDx reached 1 billion views in February 2017, 2 billion views by January 2018. In fact, TEDx has been so successful that it's overtaken TED in terms of the number of YouTube subscribers. So how does TED ensure that the quality stays high without fully controlling the events? Well, they do that by providing the tools and the governance to the event organizers. So you remember this old software that we've been running in our brains? Well, TED couldn't operate like this. TED is open rather than closed. It's non-linear rather than linear. And it provides the tools and the trust mechanisms to the best conference organizers, who in turn can curate speakers with ideas worth spreading. So, ecosystem thinking is increasingly relevant. But why haven't we fully embraced it? Well, sadly, mindsets don't evolve as quickly as technology, and it can take time to reboot. We've known for a while that the Earth is round, yet today, many people still that it's flat. Pollution is an increasing challenge for our oceans and forests. Global warming is a pressing issue. We probably only have a few decades, not centuries, to solve this. Does it mean that we're all doomed? Well, perhaps we can get some answers from companies who've managed to build communities at scale. Apple, Facebook, Google, Microsoft, Tencent, Amazon, Alibaba, who all have platforms at their heart, have managed in just a few years to build global communities. And so perhaps we can use some of the tools that they've developed to become platform builders ourselves. In 1998, the world of Stephen Hayward completely collapsed when he was told that he had ALS, also known as Lou Gehrig's disease. As a rare disease, he was told that ALS was not very well understood. So what did he do? He found his purpose by launching Patients Like Me, a patient network and research platform which helps patients with rare chronic health conditions to share their experience, symptoms, and treatments. Sadly, Stephen passed away in 2006, but his platform lives on. Today, 600,000 people can actually help each other, take part in research projects, and get access to better treatments. A few years ago, Matt Flannery and Jessica Jackley attended a microfinance class in Stanford. And after a visit to Africa for a project where they worked with entrepreneurs, they realized that the number one challenge for entrepreneurs over there was access to startup financing. And so this is how Kiva.org, the microloan platform, was born. Its mission is to connect people through lending to alleviate poverty. Today, 2.9 million borrowers, mainly women, across 85 countries, have benefited from over $1 billion worth of loans. Loneliness, isolation, care in old age, efficient supply of scarce resources like drinking water, access to health in remote areas. These are some of the challenges that platforms can help us solve by unlocking the power of communities. We can do it today, and in the future, new technologies like blockchain, AI, can help us and make it even easier to become platform builders ourselves. Platforms may even power governments and institutions. And in fact, some governments are already doing it, like Estonia. Estonia is transforming itself into a digital platform with blockchain at its core. Citizens, through their ID, can be connected with services, companies, so that they can transact on the platform. We are now at a crossroads. We can choose not to reboot our mindset, to continue to live in a closed world where resources are not efficiently allocated, shared, and deployed, where bureaucracy rules our institutions and governments, where the world is seen as linear, diversity perceived as dangerous, and where pollution and global warming continue to be ignored. Or we can embrace the open world with its ecosystem complexity and participate in a more open and transparent society. So last year I was in Berlin, attending a conference on platform ecosystems organized by Zalando. And what was quite striking is that we were only meters away from the remains of the wall. And the tagline, "Build platforms, not walls," was a very strong reminder of what happened in the past and the possibilities for the future. I am confident that we can upgrade our mindsets. We can push away the mental walls, and we can start thinking in terms of open ecosystems rather than in a linear and closed way. We all have a role to play as participants, but also as builders of platform communities. Build platforms, not walls, because walls won't help us save the planet. Thank you.